Have you ever wondered if that kitchen upgrade is really worth the cost? What about that fancy shower design that you saw online? Home renovations can be expensive, so how can you really know that it's worth the cost and time to go through the effort? As a retirement planner, I have this conversation a lot with clients around this time of year. Many of our retired federal clients want to put some money into the home that they plan on staying in for their early retirement years. So today we're going to talk about what home upgrades you might consider doing, which ones you might want to avoid, and then of course, how best to pay for them. All right, so let's start with everyone's favorite, the kitchen. Generally speaking, upgrading your kitchen can be a smart financial decision if done correctly. The Journal of Light Construction rates a light kitchen remodel, which is categorized as about $30,000, able to recoup 70% or more of that cost once they go to sell the house. So obviously that's a really good return on investment. You get to enjoy your kitchen and get the majority of your investment back again at sale. And that's great news because who doesn't love a new kitchen? And in our experience, clients have been able to increase the sale value of their home pretty commensurate to the amount that they spend in their kitchen. Again, you have to be pretty careful here. We'll talk about that in a second. At the very least, it will increase the marketability of your home, which of course helps the home sell faster, and in most cases, you get a better price. Now, here's the problem. Who can remodel their kitchen for only $30,000? Not around here in the DC area, and certainly not in many other parts of America either. So as we start to increase the price of the renovation, we start to reduce how much percentage we can actually recoup once we go to sell the property. So as we start to see kitchen renovations that are in the $80,000 to $100,000 range, now we're looking at maybe only about half of that cost being recovered upon the sale of the home. So this is just something to keep in mind, not necessarily designed to dissuade you from doing a higher value kitchen reno. And by the way, if you're already planning a renovation and your contractor hasn't already told you, let me be the first to say, plan for 15 to 20% more on top of that once the construction starts. There are always things that come up and you don't want to be caught by surprise when demo day starts. All right, next up, we've got bathrooms. This is another favorite among many people. Now with bathrooms, I'm afraid your ROI is not quite as high as a kitchen remodel, but it's still fairly high considering the utility and the value that you're going to get and enjoyment that you might get from doing this renovation. So we're looking at the mid to high 50% return on the amount of money that you put into the bathroom. As we start to see the price or cost of the project go up, we will begin to see a reduction of the recovered cost in terms of a percentage. So maybe don't get that gold-plated toilet. Now, this next one is gonna blow your mind. I know that it did for me. Replacing your siding with stone. This one, according to the same source, is estimated to give you over 90% return on investment, which is just incredible to think that pretty much all of your investment in spending on this renovation can be recovered once you go to sell the house. Plus, if you like the look, you get to enjoy it along the way. Now, of course, this is going to range greatly depending on the side of your house, depending on the kind of stone that you're looking for, what condition your siding is in. Now, most real estate experts tend to agree that the stone look increases the marketability of the home as well, so there's a bonus on top. Next up, decks. Now, decks are a very popular add-on to a house, and they do give you a relatively good return on investment when you go to resell the property. Now, it's important to know that decks do not add to the livable square footage of the home, so we can't expect them to be obviously lower in percentage compared to something like a kitchen or if you were to actually extend the home itself. But they are a very sought after feature so that you can create meaningful memories with your family and friends outside on the summer night, or hey, grilling even if it's snowing. So those are the top home renovation choices that give you the biggest bang for your buck and allow you to recover the most of your investment. Now, if you didn't see your planned project on the list, then it might mean that it's in the lower value list that we'll get to in a second. It doesn't make them bad choices necessarily. It just means that when you go to sell the home, you're not likely to increase the value of your home as much as you would with some of these prior ones. So these next upgrades are more going to be about the utility and enjoyment of the property and of the upgrade while you're still there, not so much a financial benefit for you. First up, home theaters. These tend to cost somewhere between $20,000, $50,000, depending how crazy you go, right? And while I would personally love to watch all of the Star Wars inside your gigantic theater room, your next buyers likely won't. They can be great for entertaining and enjoying your time in the home, but just don't expect that the amount of money you put into a theater is going to increase your home by a similar amount once you go to resell. Next up, swimming pools. Who doesn't love a good swimming pool? Home buyers, that's who. The average cost to build a swimming pool in the United States, according to US News Real Estate, is $65,000, and that doesn't even include the close to $3,000 to $5,000 in annual maintenance cost. Beyond that, in the financial planning industry, we have something called an attractive nuisance. Pools are dangerous for obvious reasons, and even if you put up a fence with a sign, you're often liable for damages if somebody gets injured or worse. If you're going to build a pool, make sure that you talk to your planner and insurance agent to make sure that you have proper liability and insurance coverage. Now, with your pool, you also have to have that massive outdoor kitchen, right? Well, I think so, but probably not as an increasing investment to your property. Remember that all of the homes in the surrounding area, we call those the comparable sales. Your home has to be within that range, regardless if you have all of the premium features. There's very few exceptions to this, but for the most part, just be careful with those. Next up, garage conversions. I love me a good garage gym as much as the next guy or gal. But let's be real, garages are for cars. If you spend thousands, $15,000 on average, to convert your garage into a gym or otherwise livable space, new buyers are not likely to value it the same. And in some cases, it may actually detract buyers because if they want to use the garage for their cars, they may now have to demo what you've already built, and that's an additional cost to them. So if you're gonna put $100,000 towards a renovation, you want to consider trying to get back as much as you can financially, so try to be smart about the investments that you're going to make. And a pro tip with this is if you have any realtor friends, you can ask them, if you spend this much in this kitchen, how much do they believe that the home would appreciate in value? And that helps you gauge how much you can spend on a project safely. Now, on the other hand, is it always about the money? Well, no, it's not. Not for our clients. What is our money for if not to take care of ourselves, the people that we care about, and to do good with? Getting to enjoy the fruits of your labor and now spend your wealth is a mindset shift in retirement. You've spent your whole life saving for the future, and finally, the future is here. Our clients value maximizing their time here left with friends and family, and sometimes spending a little money is worth it. There's a concept in financial planning called UTILs. This is a unit of measurement, if you will, that quantifies utility. In our context, how happy are you that you built that outdoor kitchen? How much more do you get to enjoy your retirement? And isn't that what retirement planning is all about? I often share this with clients when they are thinking about retirement decisions and how they want to spend their wealth. And we absolutely have to be smart about the decisions that we make with our money. That's important. But true retirement planning lives somewhere in the middle where good financial decisions meet happy life decisions. We don't call them the golden years for nothing. Okay, so you've decided you're going to do the project. Now, how do we pay for it? Cash is a good answer, but there are other strategies to fund these kinds of projects that wealthy families can take advantage of, despite what some financial pundits tend to say. Now, the idea of using anything but cash makes some people nervous, and for good reason. I generally wouldn't recommend that somebody use a home equity line of credit or HELOC if they don't already have the cash available to be able to pay for the project. It's simply a matter of choosing not to use the cash on hand and use another funding method because of some specific reasons. So let's get into those. HELOC equals bad. For the mass populace, yeah, that's the right message. And the dangers of a HELOC are significant. If you can't afford to make the payments on those HELOCs, your home is at risk of being taken from you. In other words, it's collateralized by the value of your home. So if you experience a job loss, for example, and now you can no longer make those HELOC payments because you just don't have the cash flow to do it, you might be forced to sell your home to pay off your mortgage now and your HELOC balance. You can't return a kitchen that you've already built. I'd be remiss if I didn't cover both sides of the argument. So let's talk about some of the downsides. First of all, HELOCs can be expensive. They can have all kinds of rules attached to them. If you close them too early, you might be hit with even larger closing costs than you realized. And what counts as closing a HELOC? Well, refinancing your house or obviously moving. If you're going to sell your home, that HELOC closes as well. But despite these challenges, saying that HELOCs are just a bad tool as a blanket statement is just not prudent planning. Like any tool, how you use it determines your outcomes. But for the kind of retirement planning that is available to our audience and clients, the proper use of debt can be smart. Let me explain. If you've already built a secure retirement for yourself, and your retirement planning is more about how do you get the most out of your money, avoid taxes, enjoy life more, etc., then it's more about how to make the smartest use of your money. There are some really good reasons to use a HELOC. The first is arbitrage. Can you do better with cash or something like a fixed income instrument, perhaps US Treasury bonds, something like that, compared to the interest that you might be paying? Now, this is a tricky question because we don't want to consider stocks. Okay, we know that stocks in the long term can give us the opportunity of having really good returns, but that's not what we're talking about here. The problem with stocks is that this is a long-term investment. They are too volatile and too unpredictable in the short term, which is risk. So we're talking only about very, very conservative vehicles. And even with bonds, you need to be careful. Bonds by themselves are not inherently safe. There are very risky bonds out there. Now, here's the wrinkle. Ready? This does not work for HELOCs. Why? Because a HELOC has a variable interest rate. So in other words, if you're getting 4% on your cash, what do you think your HELOC interest is going to be? Well, probably 5, 6, sometimes higher. So really, the arbitrage does not work. But other kinds of debt, you might have a fixed rate that is less than what you can earn on your money. So that's one way to consider thinking about this. The second reason is that your HELOC can essentially be a fire extinguisher. How? Well, let's assume that your project cost is $100,000 and months before you went to do your project, the markets became very volatile, and so your portfolio took a big hit. And so now the $100,000 that you're taking is coming out here and experienced a rather substantial drop from where it was before. So if you're now going in and selling these investments, you are creating a permanent loss by selling those investments at a loss. Not to mention, which account is this money coming from? Pre-tax TSP? Pre-tax 401k, traditional IRA. Okay, now on top of this 100,000, we also have taxes that are owed on it as well. We're talking federal and in some cases even state taxes as well. Now your project might be $125,000, $130,000. And again, selling at a loss because your portfolio has fallen. And let's not forget, if you are 65 and on Medicare, taking this amount of income out of a retirement account that is considered taxable income might affect your IRMA. So you might be doubling, sometimes tripling your Medicare premiums. That's thousands of dollars extra per year that you're paying. So you're starting to see how these costs are really adding up. And so sometimes the temporary interest payment on a HELOC may be less than the taxes plus additional IRMA plus permanent loss and loss of recovering that value again. It may be worth going for that little bit of interest, or sometimes a lot of interest, like right now on HELOCs, for a period of time, allowing your portfolio to recover over time so that then you can sell at better market conditions, pay off the HELOC so that you don't owe that anymore. This is a very interesting way that wealthy families can consider using something like a line of credit for their needs. In fact, this is exactly how the wealthiest families in America consistently are able to sell their investments not at a loss, but continually making gains and being able to live their lifestyle. We don't often look to the HELOC for this kind of thing, but hey, it's there if you need it. Now, of course, you might have a taxable account instead of a retirement account, so you're only looking at capital gains. But again, is that the smartest use of your money? If we're looking at RMDs later down the line, if we're looking at long-term care expenses and all of your money is pre-tax, that could push you into really high brackets, really high IRMA. So we have to be careful. Now, beyond the avoidance of tax and possible permanent loss is the ability to, in some cases, deduct some of that interest expense from your taxes. So in a lot of cases, if you're using the HELOC for renovations on your primary home, then you may be able to deduct some of that interest. This is where you need to talk to your accountant to see if this is possible and if it makes sense for your plan. So that was a lot to cover, but tell me what you think. Are there other renos that I didn't cover that you think are actually worth it? Maybe do give a good ROI? Would you personally use a HELOC to cover some of your projects? Let me know in the comment section, and until next time, stay wise and stay wealthy.